What she confessed about you in private, no one was ready for this. Stop for a moment. Before another thought distracts you, listen. This was not revealed to many, and it was not meant for wandering ears. What she confessed about you in private was sealed in the unseen realm, until now. There are conversations that happen behind closed doors, words spoken when pride is laid down and truth slips out without armor. She thought no one heard. She believed heaven was silent. But nothing whispered in the dark escapes divine attention. Archangel Michael stands as witness to what was said when your name was spoken softly, with trembling honesty. You have felt it, haven't you? That strange pressure in your chest. That unexplainable pull to look back, even when you promised yourself you were done. That moment when her energy crossed your mind without warning. This is why. In private, when no one was watching, she admitted something she never had the courage to say aloud. Not to friends. Not to family. Not even to herself, until it spilled out. She confessed that you were never just someone. You were the standard. The comparison she measures everything against. The reference point she can't erase. She confessed that losing you didn't bring relief. It brought exposure. Exposure to what she avoided. Exposure to what she delayed. Exposure to the truth she ran from. And here is what few are ready to hear: her confession wasn't just emotional. It was spiritual. She admitted that when she walked away, something in her life started collapsing in quiet ways. Not dramatic enough for others to notice, but deep enough that she felt it every night. Peace became thin. Joy became forced. Distractions stopped working. And in those moments, your name surfaced, not as regret alone, but as recognition. You were not perfect. But you were real. And real carries weight in a world addicted to illusion. Archangel Michael reveals that she confessed you carried a kind of covering she didn't understand at the time. When you were present, things held together. When you left, or were pushed away, disorder slowly crept in. Not as punishment. As consequence. This is where it becomes intense. She confessed that she sees now what she couldn't see then. You were sent during a season of alignment, not convenience. And instead of honoring that season, she treated it as optional. Replaceable. Delayed. But heaven does not send assignments casually. You may wonder why this matters now. Why you are hearing this at this exact moment. Because your spirit has been questioning your worth in silence. You've been asking, without words, whether you were ever truly valued, or just temporarily appreciated. Whether you imagined the depth. Whether you misread the connection. Whether you were foolish to believe it meant more. This message is your answer. Her confession confirms what your intuition already knew. You were not mistaken. You were discerning. And discernment often feels lonely until truth catches up. There is something else she admitted, something that shook the unseen realm. She said she knows now that if she had chosen differently, her life would look different. Not easier, but aligned. And that realization frightens her more than losing you did. Because it means responsibility can no longer be avoided. So instead of reaching out, she stays silent. Instead of apologizing, she watches from a distance. Instead of confessing to you, she confessed in private, hoping the words would dissolve once spoken. But words spoken carry power. Archangel Michael does not reveal this to pull you backward. This is not permission to chase what already showed you its limits. This revelation comes to restore your authority, to close the loop, to free you from self-doubt. Still, there is more. Because what she confessed next explains why your name keeps resurfacing in her thoughts, and why a shift is approaching faster than you expect. Do not move yet. Do not assume the story is finished. What she admitted after that confession changes everything. Listen carefully now, because what comes next is heavier than what was first revealed. This is where the confession deepened, and where truth crossed into territory she was not prepared to face. After admitting what you meant, she went quiet. Not because the words were finished, but because fear interrupted them. There is a pause that happens when the soul realizes it has gone too far to turn back. And in that silence, something else surfaced. She confessed that she underestimated you. Not your kindness. Not your patience. But your absence. She said she thought moving on would be simple. That time would blur your memory. That new attention would overwrite what once felt sacred. She believed distraction could replace depth. Noise could replace connection. Motion could replace meaning. But instead, every substitute exposed the original. She admitted that the people who came after you felt hollow. Conversations felt rushed. Touch felt disconnected. Laughter felt loud but empty. And in those moments she never shared publicly, she realized something unsettling. You carried a presence that could not be replicated. This is where her confession turned inward. She said she saw herself more clearly after you were gone, and she didn't like what she saw. Patterns she blamed on others stood exposed. Avoidance she once justified now had a name. Emotional shortcuts she relied on no longer worked without your steadiness absorbing the impact. She admitted that with you, she felt seen without being interrogated, supported without being controlled, challenged without being diminished. And instead of rising to meet that level, she withdrew from it. Here is the truth many avoid. Some people don't leave because something is wrong. They leave because something is right, and right demands growth. She confessed she wasn't ready to grow. And that realization still haunts her. Archangel Michael reveals that she also confessed something that shocked even herself. She said she felt safer pretending you were the problem than admitting she was afraid of what becoming better would require. So she chose distance over discipline, comfort over clarity, escape over evolution. And yet, your name keeps returning. She confessed that when life becomes quiet, when distractions fade, when the noise settles, it is your energy she feels. Not nostalgia alone, but familiarity. A sense of this was real. A sense of this mattered. She admitted she tried to convince herself you were replaceable, but her spirit never agreed with that lie. This is important for you to hear. Because there were moments you wondered if you were too much, too deep, too intense, too intentional, too present, too serious about truth, too committed to meaning. Her confession answers that. You were not too much. You were too aligned for where she was. She also admitted something she has not told anyone else. She said she recognizes now that you were reflecting parts of herself she avoided. Your integrity highlighted her inconsistency. Your emotional availability exposed her emotional defenses. Your calm made her chaos visible. And instead of healing, she resisted. This is why silence followed. This is why explanations never came. This is why closure felt incomplete. Not because you were unworthy of it, but because she could not face herself long enough to give it. Archangel Michael speaks clearly here. This revelation is not meant to reopen wounds. It is meant to seal them with truth. You did not imagine the connection. You did not exaggerate the bond. You did not misinterpret the depth. The confession confirms that what you felt was mutual, but unequally handled. There is something else. She confessed that she sometimes wonders what would happen if she reached out now. But the thought terrifies her. Because she knows you are no longer the same. She senses your growth. She feels your detachment forming, not out of bitterness, but clarity. And clarity is intimidating to those who still live in emotional fog. She admitted that if she spoke to you now, she would have to speak honestly. No excuses. No deflection. No half-truths. And she doesn't know if she has the courage to stand in that light yet. So she watches from a distance. She notices your shift. She feels your elevation. She senses that your life is aligning without her. And this creates a quiet urgency inside her. But hear this carefully, because this is where many misunderstand. Her confession does not mean she is meant to return. It does not mean reconciliation is guaranteed. It does not mean you are meant to wait. This message is about recognition, not reunion. Archangel Michael reveals this so your spirit can release false responsibility. You were not meant to carry the weight of someone else's readiness. You were meant to walk your path without shrinking for those who fear their own expansion. Still, the confession did not end there. Because after admitting all of this, after acknowledging the loss, the fear, the regret, she said something unexpected. Something that points directly to what is about to happen next in your life. She said she knows now that crossing paths with you changed her trajectory forever, even if she never walks beside you again. And that realization unlocked something prophetic. Because when one person recognizes the assignment too late, heaven often redirects the blessing forward. What is being prepared for you now is not smaller than what you lost. It is greater. And what Archangel Michael is about to reveal next will explain why a sudden shift, one you did not plan, is approaching faster than you think. Do not look back. Do not rush ahead. What comes next will clarify why this confession surfaced now, and what is about to be replaced in your life permanently. Now hear this without fear, because this is where the confession crossed a line she never intended to cross. This is where truth stopped being about the past, and started pointing toward destiny. After everything she admitted, after the regret, the recognition, the silent watching from a distance, she said something that startled her own spirit. She confessed that she feels you slipping beyond her reach, not emotionally, but spiritually. And she knows once that happens, there is no reclaiming what was released. She said it feels like a door closing softly, not with anger, not with drama, but with finality. That is not imagination. That is discernment. Archangel Michael speaks clearly now. There are moments when heaven begins to shift someone out of a season so quietly that only the Spirit notices. This is one of those moments. You have been changing in ways you didn't announce. Strength has been forming where confusion once lived. Boundaries have replaced over-explaining. Peace has started to feel normal. And she feels that. She confessed that what unsettles her most is not losing access to you, but losing relevance in your future. She realizes now that you are no longer waiting to be chosen. You are choosing alignment. This is why her energy fluctuates. This is why thoughts of you come in waves. This is why she senses urgency without clarity. She admitted she feels like she missed a window. And she's right. Not because you are cruel. Not because you hardened your heart. But because seasons expire when lessons are complete. Archangel Michael reveals something crucial here. You were never meant to beg for recognition. You were meant to receive it after release. The confession came late not to reopen the door, but to confirm why it closed. She also admitted that watching you rise without resentment is what hurts most. If you were bitter, she could dismiss you. If you were broken, she could feel justified. But you are neither. You are calm. You are focused. You are becoming. And that terrifies someone who stayed the same. She confessed that she knows now she met you at a crossroads, where one path required courage and the other required avoidance. She chose the easier road then, not realizing the cost would echo later. This is where many people misunderstand divine timing. Sometimes God removes people not because they are evil, but because they refuse to evolve. And when evolution is delayed too long, alignment must move on without them. You did not lose her. You outgrew the version of her that could not walk where you were being led. She confessed that she feels a spiritual distance now, as if an unseen boundary has formed. Conversations she imagines having with you feel impossible. Apologies feel too late. Explanations feel insufficient. That boundary is not punishment. It is protection. Archangel Michael says, "You were covered because you honored truth even when it cost you comfort. You stayed honest when it would have been easier to pretend. You loved without manipulation. You walked away without destroying what you once cherished. That restraint mattered. Because now, hear this clearly. What is approaching you requires discernment, not desperation. It requires clarity, not longing. It requires a healed heart, not an open wound. This is why the confession surfaced now. Not to pull you backward, but to finalize your release. She confessed something else, something she barely understands herself. She said she senses that you are about to step into a connection that will feel effortless in ways your connection never could. Not shallow. Not careless. But mutual. And that realization makes her feel like a chapter closing that cannot be rewritten. That feeling is accurate. Because when heaven prepares to introduce replacement-level alignment, something equal or greater in depth, it first removes lingering questions. It answers the what-ifs. It dissolves the doubt. It restores your confidence in your discernment. This confession is the final answer to questions you stopped asking out loud. You were not wrong. You were not foolish. You were not imagining the depth. You were early. And being early often feels like being rejected, until the timing reveals the truth. Archangel Michael speaks with authority now. The silence you experienced was not abandonment. It was redirection. The distance was not loss. It was repositioning. The ending was not failure. It was filtration. And now, something is aligning that does not require you to prove, convince, or diminish yourself to be understood. But there is a warning embedded in this revelation. Do not reopen what God has already sealed. Do not romanticize what required you to self-abandon. Do not confuse delayed recognition with future potential. She confessed because her spirit needed closure. You received this message because yours is already coming. There is a shift forming that will feel sudden but divinely timed. A conversation you don't expect. An opportunity you didn't chase. A connection that mirrors your growth instead of resisting it. And when that moment arrives, you will understand why this confession had to surface first. Because the next door cannot open while your hand is still touching the old one. Stay present. Stay grounded. Stay open, but not attached to what has already shown you its limit. What Archangel Michael reveals next will explain how this shift manifests, and why once it begins, there will be no confusion about where you belong. Do not assume you have seen the peak yet. The next revelation will show you why this ending was necessary, and what kind of beginning is now unavoidable. Now steady your spirit, because this is where responsibility shifts fully away from you, and authority returns to your hands. Archangel Michael speaks with clarity. What is unfolding now is not emotional coincidence. It is alignment taking form. And alignment always follows truth. That is why her confession surfaced when it did. Not for reconciliation, not for explanation, but for separation with peace. She confessed knowing that if she had stayed, she would have had to change. And that truth revealed something deeper. She did not just walk away from you, she walked away from the version of herself that could have matched your future. That matters. Because you were never meant to drag anyone into purpose. Purpose only walks with those willing to rise. Hear this carefully. You were not rejected. You were released. Released from overgiving. Released from explaining your worth. Released from waiting for emotional readiness that was never promised. And now heaven responds. Archangel Michael reveals that a recalibration has begun in your life. You may not see it clearly yet, but you can feel it. Old attachments feel weaker. Emotional loops feel less gripping. The pull to revisit the past is fading, not because you forced it, but because clarity has replaced curiosity. This is what closure feels like when it is divinely granted. And here is something sacred you must understand. When heaven closes a chapter this cleanly, it is because what follows requires full presence. No divided heart. No unresolved longing. No emotional debt. That is why this message carries weight. Some of you listening have been pouring quietly, into growth, into healing, into discipline, into becoming, without applause. And Archangel Michael acknowledges that faithfulness. You stayed when it hurt. You left without destroying. You healed without numbing. That posture is not overlooked. This is where support enters, not emotional dependence, but spiritual reinforcement. Because when people resonate deeply with messages like this, it is often because their spirit recognizes truth being spoken. If this word is grounding you, strengthening you, or helping you release something heavy, there is a simple way to anchor that intention. Not obligation. Not pressure. Alignment. There is a super thanks button beneath this message for those who feel led to plant a seed of gratitude, not to me, but as an act of agreement with the shift happening in your life. It is not about amount. It is about intention. A way of saying, I receive clarity. I release the past. And for those who find themselves returning to these messages, needing reinforcement, discernment, and consistent spiritual grounding, there is a deeper covering available. The membership is not content alone. It is a space of continuity. A place where growth is sustained, not momentary. Where reminders come when life gets loud again. Membership is not about access, it is about alignment. And those who step into it often do so when they sense they are entering a new season and want to remain anchored. Now listen closely, because this next part is vital. She confessed something else quietly, almost reluctantly. She said she realizes now that even if she tried to return, she would not recognize you the same way. Because the version of you she left no longer exists. That is confirmation. You are not becoming, you have become. And when becoming finishes its work, attraction changes. Opportunities change. Connections change. Even the way people speak to you changes. Archangel Michael declares, you are stepping into a season where mutuality is required. No more chasing. No more convincing. No more emotional imbalance disguised as passion. The next connection, whether relational, professional, or spiritual, will feel steady. Not boring. Steady. And steady is unfamiliar to those conditioned by chaos. That is why this transition may feel strange. Peace can feel empty before it feels safe. But do not fill it with the past. Do not reopen doors just because silence feels unfamiliar. Her confession was the last echo, not the next chapter. And there is one final truth she admitted that seals this completely. She said she knows now that you will love again, but this time without shrinking. Without waiting. Without explaining your value. And she knows she will witness that from a distance, knowing she had a chance to grow into that future, but chose comfort instead. That awareness is her lesson, not your burden. Your responsibility now is simple but sacred. Remain open without attachment. Trust without rushing. Move forward without dragging memory behind you. Archangel Michael stands guard over this transition. And what comes next will not ask you to heal first. It will meet you healed. Stay attentive. Because the final revelation explains how this new alignment enters your life, and why once it does, you will never question your worth again. What is about to replace what you lost will make the confession feel small in comparison. Do not blink. Now receive this with stillness, because this is the completion, not an ending, but a confirmation. Archangel Michael reveals that what replaces what you lost will not arrive loudly. It will arrive clearly. There will be no confusion. No mixed signals. No emotional tug-of-war disguised as chemistry. What is coming will recognize you without interrogation and choose you without hesitation. That is how you will know. You have spent seasons interpreting silence, decoding distance, and translating inconsistency into hope. Those skills are no longer required where you are being led. In the next alignment, Peace will not feel like boredom, it will feel like safety. Stability will not feel like settling, it will feel like strength. This is why the confession had to surface before the arrival. Because heaven does not layer blessings on top of unresolved doubt. It removes the residue first. It answers the quiet questions you buried. It affirms your discernment so you don't second guess it when something new appears. And hear this clearly now. What she confessed was never meant to elevate her in your story. It was meant to exonerate you. You were faithful where others were casual. You were intentional where others were convenient. You were honest where others were evasive. Those qualities did not go unnoticed. They were simply misplaced, temporarily. Archangel Michael declares that you are entering a season where effort is met with effort, clarity is met with clarity, and presence is met with presence. You will not have to perform depth. You will not have to explain your values. You will not have to downplay your intuition to keep someone comfortable. The next alignment will recognize you. And this is where the final shift locks in. She confessed because her spirit sensed closure coming. Not emotional closure, but spiritual separation. She felt the cord loosening. She felt your energy no longer tethered to her perception. And that frightened her, because cords rarely reattach once truth dissolves illusion. That cord is now gone. Not cut in anger. Not severed in resentment. But released in understanding. This is why when you think of her now, the emotion feels different. Lighter. Distant. Neutral. That is not numbness, that is freedom. And freedom is the doorway. Archangel Michael speaks with authority. Do not romanticize what required you to abandon yourself. Do not confuse familiarity with destiny. Do not reopen chapters simply because they once felt intense. Intensity is not intimacy. Consistency is. What is coming will not overwhelm your nervous system. It will regulate it. It will not trigger anxiety masked as excitement. It will bring calm that deepens over time. This may feel unfamiliar at first. Because chaos trains the body to equate uncertainty with passion. Healing retrains the spirit to recognize peace as alignment. Trust that retraining. There is one final confirmation you must receive. The reason this message found you now, at this exact moment, is because you are about to be seen differently. By people who matter. By opportunities you did not pursue. By connections that come with mutual respect built in, not negotiated later. You are stepping into a season where your presence speaks louder than your effort. And when that happens, those who once underestimated you will sense it without explanation. That is not pride. That is positioning. Archangel Michael reminds you, do not rush the next door. Walk toward it with discernment, not urgency. Let what aligns approach you. Let what is meant for you recognize you without persuasion. You are no longer proving your worth. You are protecting your peace. And when the next connection appears, because it will, you will know it by how little you have to explain yourself. By how naturally you are received. By how safe your truth feels in their presence. At that moment, the confession you heard will fade into context. Not because it didn't matter, but because something greater replaced it. This is the final truth. You were never behind. You were being refined. And refinement always precedes recognition. Stay grounded. Stay open. Stay present. What is aligned with you is already moving.